A to Z with Mark Zinno, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it starts now.
Good afternoon. Welcome to A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta, where today I tell you it's easier than you think. Welcome in. We are live here on this Thursday, draft day in the NFL, and a huge show for you. Steve Weiss of the NFL Network going to join us as we will dissect what the Falcons do at 8. Plus, we got some Braves news that has Braves fans very excited. I told you all to be patient. It was going to happen, and it is happening tonight. So we will talk to Grant McCauley about that as well. We've got a lot to do here on A to Z. And I want to start with, obviously, the NFL draft because, you know, there is a couple of hours left until this whole thing kicks off. And all of the white noise and all of the back and forth and all the consternation about what everybody's trying to do. And, oh, God, the mock drafts. Oh, God, the mock drafts. Thank God they'll all come to a close, although somebody will release one tomorrow for the mock draft for next year because that's what we do in NFL circles. We oversaturate the entire world with football. Okay. I've been trying to dissect this, and we've talked about this for the last 2 weeks. I've been trying to dissect this pick, and I've said something repeatedly that all I want is it to be easy for the Falcons, right? Like, I just want the pick to be obvious. I just want it to be something that is so readily apparent that they can't really be second-guessed. And they haven't had that for the better part of, 7 years now since Vic Beasley was drafted. I don't care what anybody says. You can talk to me about Todd Gurley. Vic Beasley was the right pick. He was the obvious pick. He was the smart pick when they picked him in 2015. It made sense. So I hope that this happens again. Now, speaking of those aforementioned mock drafts, 3 of the best in the biz have their final mock drafts out. Mel Kiper, Todd McShay of ESPN, and Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Those are the guys that I look to with their mock drafts as the ones who really kind of provide, I think, the best insight. And it was a couple of years ago that Mel Kiper predicted that the Falcons would take Calvin Ridley. He got that one right when not a lot of other people did. So because one year, by the way, I tracked it all. I literally took like over 100 mock drafts starting on January 1st all the way through the NFL draft from major media outlets, ESPN, CBS, Bleacher Report, wherever they were posted, NFL.com. I took them all and basically weighted out the picks and then did a total of what everybody thought they were going to pick. And there were only 4 drafts that year that had the Falcons taking Calvin Ridley, and Mel Kiper's final mock was one of them. So anyway, I say all that to say that, again, everybody's got a mock draft. So none of this stuff is written in stone. But I started to look at these things and figure out how it's going to be easy for the Falcons to make a selection tonight where they can walk to the podium and feel confident in the player that they're getting and have the fan base go, I get it. That's smart. I'm okay with that. Right. And I take these mock drafts just as a way to sort of look at things and go, okay, let's see how the chips fall. For example, Mel Kiper in his final mock, okay, I'm going to give you the picks leading up to the Falcons. Travon Walker at 1, Aiden Hutchinson at 2, Eke Mekwonu at 3, Sauce Gardner at 4, Charles Cross at 5, Evan Neal at 6, Jermaine Johnson at 7. Now, Mel Kiper has the Falcons picking Garrett Wilson at 8 from Ohio State, first receiver off the board. And Garrett Wilson is a phenomenal player, but you know my thoughts on him taking a wide receiver. I think it's a bad idea. The problem is, and where you're going to get second guessed, is you're leaving not one, but 2 players that you cannot pass up on, in my opinion. One of them, Kayvon Thibodeau, who actually has going 12 to the Vikings, falling all the way to 12. And the other one, Derek Stingley Jr., the cornerback out of LSU. I think both of those positions, because for me, again, pass rusher, cornerback, and offensive tackle are the 3 that they really should be choosing from at this point in time, right? Like, you cannot pass up those positions if they are there. They instantly make your team better. They instantly can start and play, and they instantly will be building blocks, if they're good, of the future, period. Right? So, and you'll say, Zinno, I mean, every first-round draft pick is good as a building block. Yeah, right now, Kyle Pitts is not a building block. He's fairly useless at this point in time. Your offense is going to score 19 points a game again. Like, Kyle Pitts isn't doing anything for you. Hence why you don't need a wide receiver. So, You pass up Derek Stingley, can't do it. Pass up Kayvon Thibodeau, can't do it. Let's go to Dane Brugler. Dane Brugler, his final mock has Trayvon Walker going 1, Aiden Hutchinson going 2, Derek Stingley going 3, Ike Ekwonu at 4, Evan Neal at 5, Charles Cross at 6, Sauce Gardner at 7, and he has the Falcons taking Jameson Williams at 8. The problem is that you left Kayvon Thibodeau on the board. Can't do it. If Kayvon Thibodeau falls to 8, the Falcons absolutely cannot pass him up. I don't care if he's a bust. I do not care if he's a bust. You cannot pass up Kayvon Thibodeau. You just can't. There is too much hype around him. There is too much upside at this point. There is too much of exactly what the Falcons have been looking for the better part of 15 years for them to walk away from that player. Can't do it. Absolutely cannot do it. Especially for a wide receiver. Especially for one. Now, let's get to Todd McShay. Trayvon Walker 1, Aiden Hutchinson 2, Derek Stingley 3, Ike Ekwonu 4, Charles Cross 5, Evan Neal 6, Ahmad Gardner 7, and then ding, 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 ding. What do we have for him, Johnny, at 8? Kayvon Thibodeau to the Falcons. Bam. Thank you. Now, here's the one hiccup with this. And this, I think, comes down to a matter of a matter of opinion, I guess, and everything else. Kayvon Thibodeau at 8 would be my selection if it goes down that way. I think, look, Stingley and Gardner are gone. The 2 top corners are gone. All 3 tackles are gone. And the other 2 major pass rushers are gone, and Aiden Hutchinson and Trayvon Walker. So out of the 3 pass rushers, the 3 tackles, and the 2 corners, that's 8. That's 8. And so one of those 8 should be right there for the Falcons. That's how easy this is. However, here's the small rub. If that happens, okay, and it's a choice between Kayvon Thibodeau and Jermaine Johnson. If it's a choice between Derek Stingley Jr. and Jermaine Johnson. If it's a choice between Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson. What do you do? Because Falcons fans will tell you, whichever one we pick, the other one is going to be great. That's what they'll tell you. Because that's what we've been trained to believe, right? Falcons fans have been trained to believe they'll get this wrong, they'll screw it up. That's the only other rub. Me, I would take Thibodeau over Johnson. Like, I would take any of the other 3 over Johnson. I'd take the 3 offensive tackles over Johnson. I'd take either one of the corners over Johnson. And I would take all 3 pass rushers over Jermaine Johnson. The best thing that can happen for the Falcons, in my opinion, is for Jermaine Johnson to be overdrafted and drafted in front of one of those other pass rushers, or in front of one of those other corners, or in front of one of those other tackles, so that dude falls to them. Now, if you're in a situation where it's Kayvon Thibodeau and Charles Cross, I don't think you can go wrong. I think it's just what your preference is. If you're in a situation where it's Charles Cross and Sauce Gardner, I don't think you can go wrong. And believe it or not, Jermaine Johnson may actually get drafted sooner because the drop-off after him as the pass rusher is pretty steep. After those 4 guys, Thibodeau, Johnson, Walker, and Hutchinson, the drop-off is pretty steep. So he may get drafted earlier. Because if there's a run 1, 2, 3, if it ends up being Walker, Hutchinson, and Thibodeau, 1, 2, 3, then somebody's grabbing Jermaine Johnson. Because the drop-off after that is big. However, again, that's how this thing gets easy for me. Like, it really isn't that difficult. Now that I've been asking for it to be easy for all this time, it's really not that difficult in my opinion. You're going to end up with one of the tackles, you're going to end up with one of the 2 corners, or you're going to end up with one of the top 3 pass rushers because that's 8. It shouldn't be any other way. The hard position, again, theoretically, is that if somebody gets taken in there, if Malik Willis gets taken at 6, or Jermaine Johnson gets taken at 7, and you have the choice between one of those first 8 that I just mentioned, then Falcons fans can go, oh, I would want the other guy. I would want the other. Well, that's an advantageous position to be in. Then just trust your board. Trust your draft board, whichever guy you had rated higher, that's the one you pick. I mean, it really is like, that's as easy as I can boil it down to. That's as simple as this thing can get for the Falcons tonight. So it is what it is. If it's not one of those 8 guys, they're doing something wrong. I mean, could you sell me on Jermaine Johnson at 9? Yes, I just won't love it as much as the other guys. If they trust I have to trust that they trust their draft board. If they have Johnson rated higher than Thibodeau or Johnson rated higher than Gardner or whatever it may be, I'll have to trust their judgment on it. But at a minimum, this really should end up being easy. The only way you screw this up, honestly, is if you go wide receiver. And some people will say you'll screw it up if you go quarterback, but I understand the logic. Don't go linebacker, don't go running back, don't go wide receiver. After offensive tackle, defensive end, and cornerback, quarterback, and then you can't screw it up. So it's easier than you think. All right, coming up next, Steve Weiss of the NFL Network will join us as we'll talk about the Falcons picking the entire first round tonight, risers, fallers, and what's going to happen all in Las Vegas. Stay with us. It's A to Z right here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Give me a follow on Twitter at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Don't forget to follow us as well, Locked On Sports Atlanta at Locked On ATL, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you search Locked On Sports Atlanta. We'll be right back.